If you're struggling with debt and considering consolidation, there's one thing the companies won't tell you because it could cost them your business. After working with over 1,000 people to get out of debt, I've actually uncovered a hidden truth that most consolidation companies would rather you never hear. So in this video, I'll break down what debt consolidation really is, reveal the truth they're hiding, and show you why knowing it could actually save you years of financial pain. Now, before we dive in, just a quick heads up, this video is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as legal or any kind of financial advice. Okay, so what really is debt consolidation, right? Is it a loan? Is it a program? Well, if you go to dictionary.com and you search for the definition of debt consolidation, you'll see it states the combining of several smaller loans into a single loan in order to obtain better terms as a lower interest rate. So with that in mind, debt consolidation should mean you're getting a loan, right? Well, that's where things get a little confusing. So, what are debt consolidation companies actually offering? Well, they're offering what they call a debt consolidation program. To make things even more complicated, they actually call that program by many different names like debt settlement, debt relief, debt negotiation, debt hardship, debt forgiveness, debt backback, and no-mo debt program. Okay, I'm just kidding about the last one, but I would not be surprised if it actually ends up being a real term for it down the road. So in a debt consolidation program, a company, right, is going to be negotiating down the balances of past due unsecured debt. So you may be thinking to yourself, well, I'm not behind, so why should I do this kind of program? Well, there's the kicker, right? So you would need to be behind in order for this program to work, right? Because creditors typically don't really have any kind of incentive to settle if the debt isn't past due. And when I say past due, I'm not saying 30 days behind. I'm referring to being like 3 to 6 months behind. So what will happen is you'll make a monthly payment into the program. It's like a monthly deposit into an escrow account where it's building up funds while the debt continues to fall behind. Eventually, once the debt has fallen far enough behind, the company will start contacting your creditors and then negotiate down the balance owed. So, you can think of it this way, right? Instead of making payments on the debt, you're now just depositing money into, let's call it a bucket that a company has access to. They'll eventually use the money in that little bucket to try to settle on your behalf with the creditors. Okay, now before I talk about the hidden truth, I want to talk about whether this option would make sense for you. Because at the end of the day, there are many, many different options to resolve your debt. This is ultimately just one of them. So if you're not seeing that you need to fall behind, then this program may not be where you're at. You may be able to look at maybe nonprofit credit counseling, which I actually do cover in depth in another video. That said, if you are trying to navigate this and you're honestly not sure what to do, you could try to lay out all the debt options in front of you, right? And then just kind of holistically compare. That way you can, research the costs, the pros and cons of maybe nonprofit credit counseling, debt consolidation programs, an actual debt consolidation loan, Chapter 7 bankruptcy, Chapter 13 bankruptcy, and maybe even debt payoff planning. And then you can try to estimate the cost for each option by either looking into how the program estimates their monthly payment or by maybe speaking with a representative at each company. And then you'll kind of lay things out in front of you so you can understand what all the options look like in terms of cost, pros and cons, and all the above. And that way you're actually able to make the most informed decision. Now, one quick note though, I will say that honestly can take quite a bit of time. So at the end of the day, you're going to have to speak with different representatives, different salespeople, and you ultimately may not be sure who to trust. We get it. So that's why we did build our free debt relief calculator. I put a link in the description if you want to take a look. It'll go through different questions, and then at the end, it'll show you the estimated costs, the duration, the pros and cons to all of those options I was just talking about. It honestly just takes like 5 to 8 minutes on average, but again, I'll just put it in the description if you want to check it out. Okay, so now that we kind of have a decent idea of how debt consolidation programs actually work, let's now dive into the juicier part of the video. So what is the hidden truth behind these programs? Well, the answer is some consolidation companies do everything in their power to make the program seem like it's a loan by either numerous sales tactics or marketing practices. So first, on the marketing tactics side. So some of these companies will send you a mailer stating that you pre-qualify for a super low interest rate loan, and it's like 5.99%. And then on the mailer, there should be like this invitation code that you can share with their team if you decide to call them. However, here's where the the hidden truth comes out. When you call, most of the time, if not every time, they will tell you that you unfortunately don't qualify for the loan, but you do qualify for a debt consolidation program. So folks, that's what we call bait and switch. They bait you in with something that is potentially too good to be true. You call, and then they pitch you something nothing at all like a loan. The other thing companies may do to try to make the program seem like a loan is by saying in the actual sales call that if you just make 6 months of on-time payments in the program, then you may be able to qualify for their graduation loan. We talk about graduation loans in detail in another video, but in short, it's basically where companies will offer you a loan to graduate the program early. The challenge is that companies are sometimes triple dipping in fees with these graduation loans because they're now taking their fees for settling the debt, they're taking the interest on the loan, and then potentially origination fees. I know it may sound a bit confusing as I'm kind of going through this fairly quickly, so please watch our video explaining how it works in more detail. But in short, since the interest rate on the loans, these graduation loans, are often really high, people end up paying the same, if not more, than what their debt was when they signed up. It's just super frustrating. So now that you know one of the hidden truths, why do companies do this? Well, some of you may be thinking to yourself, well, because they're trying to make money. And you'd be absolutely correct. Some companies do this to drive as much revenue as possible. So they may try to convince you to sign up for one of these programs when it may not actually make sense for you to do that at all. They'll spend gobs of money on deceptive mailer advertising, but here are my thoughts on this. I get it. If you're a company, you most likely have a team of people and need to cover payroll. It makes sense. I get it. You need to drive revenue. You need to pay your employees. You need to keep the business running. That said, this is the debt industry. People are trying to understand their options so they can become debt-free. So the idea of potentially taking advantage of someone by pushing them into something that may put them in a worse position than where they were before, just so they can drive revenue, kind of sounds interesting. So I'll let you make the call on how you feel about it. And if you have thoughts, honestly, leave a comment down below. I'd love to chat through your guys' thoughts on this topic as well. But anyways, so now that you know what debt consolidation companies aren't telling you, there's still a critical question. Which debt solution is actually right for you? Well, there's a method we've used with hundreds of individuals to help them identify which option saves them the most money. So watch this video if you want to stop guessing and start knowing which path will get you debt-free faster.